Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make this Santa hat from the Miraculous Christmas special. In the show, Marinette gives this hat to Adrian as a gift. So let's get started. You will need plain paper, a pencil, a ruler, scissors, red parachute cord, fabric Mod Podge, matte white fabric paint, a small paintbrush, a fine fabric paintbrush, thin cardboard or cardstock paper, something to put inside the hat to prevent any paint from bleeding through, a tape measure, a fabric pencil, sewing pins, sewing needle, red thread, red knit ponte fabric, white faux fur fabric, polyester fiber fill, and a lint roller. I also highly recommend having a vacuum handy and, if you have one, a sewing machine. Optionally, you can use an existing Santa hat as a template, but it isn't necessary. First, measure out a Santa hat shape onto the red fabric. I measured a hat I already had and it was about 17 inches long, not including the pom-pom. Fold the red fabric in half with the ends facing right, then turn the fabric so the fold is facing towards you. If you have a Santa hat, you can simply place it on top of the fabric like this and trace it. So I decided to make my Santa hat slightly bigger by adding an inch on the bottom. If you don't have a hat to trace, you'll need to measure 18.9 inches at the fold. Then, from the right corner, measure 13.5 inches on an angle. Mark the line curved like this. You can check if the measurement is correct by measuring 12.5 inches from the top point of the measurement like this. And lastly, measure 17.5 inches from the left corner on an angle connecting to the 13.5 inch measurement. Next, pin the fabric in place and cut out the shape. Make sure to cut the bottom portion of the hat curved. You should have a piece that looks like this. Now keep the fabric folded, pin it in place, and sew the edge together using the red thread. I used white thread on one side so you could better see where I sewed. Also, leave about a ½ inch seam allowance, which I accidentally didn't, but you should. Then flip the hat right side out. At this point, you should try on the hat to see if it fits. If it's too big, simply sew the edge, leaving a 2 to 3 inch seam allowance, depending on how fitted you want the hat to be, then trim off the excess. I purposely made mine slightly bigger than it needed to be. Now lay the hat on a flat surface with the seam on the back. Place the cardboard inside the hat, then paint a snowflake design using the white fabric paint and fine fabric paintbrush. I didn't actually measure them as I painted, I eyeballed it by looking at some stills from the show. Also, you don't need to paint any snowflakes on the bottom 2 inches of the hat because that's where the fluffy fabric is going to be sewn on. The largest looks like this. It has 12 arms with V's in between them and a sort of X design inside. Then each arm has 4 snowflake tips, 2 on each side. I made the largest snowflake to be around 4.5 centimeters. The medium-sized one has 6 arms with V's in between. arm has 2 snowflake tips, one on each side. This snowflake was around 2 centimeters. The smallest one has 5 arms with 2 snowflake tips, one on each side. The center appears to be a pentagon shape. This snowflake was around 1 centimeter. So if you want the hat to closely resemble the hat from the show, I suggest looking at reference photos. Otherwise, you can just place the 3 snowflake designs wherever you want. Let the paint dry for about an hour. Next, with a parachute cord, cut 3 strips, each measuring 4.5 inches. Then brush some fabric Mod Podge onto the ends of each cord and let them dry for a few minutes. Meanwhile, with a plain paper, ruler, and pencil, measure a 4-inch line, marking the halfway point, which would be 2 inches, then from that point, measure 1 inch on each side. Then connect the marks to make a sort of petal shape. Next, measure a 2-inch line, marking the halfway point, which would be 1 inch. Then measure half an inch on each side. Again, connect the marks to make a petal shape. Then cut out the shapes. To be certain your pattern is symmetrical, fold it in half, then cut it out. Don't worry if the pattern ends up being slightly smaller than what you traced. Then pin the patterns onto the non-fluffy side of the fur fabric and cut out the petal shapes. I'll warn you now, the fuzz gets everywhere, so that's why you need to have a lint roller and vacuum at the ready to keep your workspace as clean as possible. You'll need to cut out 4 big petals and 12 small petals in total. Next, cut out a long strip to use for the rim of the hat. I did this by laying the hat on the fabric, then flipping it over to get an estimate of how long it needed to be. The length will vary depending on your hat size. I needed a piece that was 30 inches long and 4 inches wide. Starting with the big pom-pom, take 2 petals with the right sides facing each other, then blanket stitch one edge together. Make sure each stitch is even. Then attach a cord strip to one of the petal tips near the center. Once it's secure, attach the 3rd petal to the flap like before. Onto the other edge of the 3rd petal, attach the 2nd cord about 1 centimeter away from the tip of the petal. Attach the 4th petal to the flap like before. Start to close the flaps together with a stitch, then add the last cord in between the flaps to sew them together. Leave an 1.5 inch long gap at the end. Next, turn it inside out. Fill it with some stuffing and set aside. With the smaller petal shapes, you're going to repeat the same steps as before, except this time you don't have to worry about sewing cords in between. Make sure to leave a gap on one of the sides to turn them inside out. Fill each one with a little stuffing. You should have 3 small pom-poms and 1 big pom-pom in total. Now to assemble, the big pom-pom will be sewed onto the tip of the hat, while the 3 smaller ones will be sewed onto the ends of the cords. The rim will be sewed onto the bottom edge of the hat. Starting with the rim, turn the hat right side in, then pin the fluffy fabric side to the edge starting where the seam of the hat is. Sew all around using the white thread, leaving about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Next, sew the ends of the fluffy fabric together and trim off the excess. Turn the hat right side out, then fold the fluffy fabric over the edge like this. Fold the fabric over a little, then sew it onto the hat. At the end, make a few knots, then feed the needle in between the red and fluffy fabric, then pull it out and trim the thread. Lastly, with each small pom-pom, start the stitch on the inside of the gap, then begin to close it. After 3 stitches, add it to the end of one of the cords, secure it in place, then finish closing the gap. Secure the end with a few knots. Hide the extra thread by pushing the needle near the knot you made and pushing it out somewhere else, then trim the thread. Repeat with the other 2 pom-poms. Attach the big pom-pom to the point of the hat in the same way. Finally, go over the entire hat and yourself with the lint roller to catch all the excess fuzz. So now you know how to make your very own Miraculous Santa hat. I'm sure any fan of the show would appreciate this hat very much. Hope you enjoyed the video and have fun making your own. Thanks for watching. Au revoir et à bientôt.